In the 19th century, where we'll start, although the history is older than that, our own William James was one of the first to seek in a scientific way a definition of the biological bases of emotion. Charles Darwin, writing even earlier, published a book called The Expression of Emotion in Man and Animals. And both of these two influential thinkers have in many ways influenced scientific thought on emotion even today. And all that starting in the 19th century. Next, please. In the 20th century, we went into what we emotion researchers refer to as the Dark Ages. And once again, the history is local. B.F. Skinner, who also was here at Harvard, is famous for many things, including his statement, "Emotion is the fictional cause to which we attribute behavior." In many ways, there was a dearth of research on emotion in the 20th century. In fact, when you look at the scholarly record of scientific publications, there is very little going on until the end of the 20th century. And it's a fascinating history of science for those of you who are interested. Okay, now we look to the 21st century. Here is a graph. I've marked 2000, and you can see where the 21st century starts. This and the years are going along from 1970 to the present. And what you see is the number of scholarly publications examining the effects of emotion on decision making, as well as in the blue line, the proportion that those represent for decision making research as a whole. And although it's hard to see way in the back, I will tell you the growth is exponential. The field is absolutely exploding, and it's due to, in many different factors, perhaps most important is the methodological innovation that we now are experiencing, where we can look at mind-brain behavior interactions in a way we never could before. So it's a terrifically exciting time to study emotion and decision making. Next, please. What we're going to talk about tonight, just briefly, is a spotlight on a particular kind of decision. And in particular, we're going to look at the effects of emotion on decisions that require patience, waiting, seeing a long perspective, and taking that long perspective. Okay. Some of you might be familiar with the classic marshmallow experiment. The experiment goes like this. An experimenter comes in, says to a little kid, "You can have one marshmallow now, or two if you wait." Inevitably, there's individual differences. Some can wait, some can't. That ability to wait predicts, you roll through all of them, all of these things later in life. Patience is very important. Next, please. Now, we can study that at the individual level, but there also are manifold economic effects. And roll through this slide, please. We have in this country, in particular, massive credit card debt, insufficient retirement savings, and a critical problem that will be facing all of us, which is an inability for Social Security to fund retirement. Yes, next, please. So some people think emotion is the problem driving impatience. And certainly there's a long history of philosophers who might agree with that, in particular Spinoza, who argued emotion makes us think only of the here and now. And next, please. And there is some support for that. In the case of a specific emotion, sadness. Next. In our lab, we've done a number of experiments where we have people choose between a lesser amount now or more in the future. We always use real money. And we can, for any given individual, calculate what their so-called discount rate is. Of course, you want to value something now more than something in the future, but you don't want to take it now if it's dramatically less than what you can get by waiting. And here, discount factor, the lower the factor, the more patient. And sadness, so the lower the factor, the less patient. And sadness reduces your patience. Yes. sad state through random assignment, you will take $37 immediately instead of $85 in 3 months. Whereas if you're in a neutral state, you wait till $56 next. So there's been a lot of efforts to move from a kind of Cookie Monster, me want cookie, if you recognize the 1970s font, to me want cookie but me wait. In fact, they've even gone so far as to introduce Veggie Monster. Okay, next. But the thing is, we can't just control our emotions so easily. Humans are very bad at emotion suppression. Next, please. You see that we get these ironic spikes of unwanted things, like when we're trying to suppress disgust, we get all these eye blinks. Unwanted ironic spikes. Next, please. So, the question is, even though emotion is sometimes the problem, can it also be the solution? Next. There are social functionist schools of thought about emotion, meaning that emotions also help us solve critical problems and take advantage of opportunities. Next, please. In particular, gratitude is different from sadness in that it focuses us on others rather than self, gain versus loss, fullness versus emptiness, positive versus negative. Next, please. And it's opposite in that, for example, sadness, we think of ourselves and then we pay more to get things. And gratitude, we reason, is opposite. Next, please. So in our experiments, we're delighted to find that actually inducing an emotion leads to financial patience. And when people are in a grateful state, they actually make more financially sound decisions than when they are in a neutral state. And so, in this case, emotion is the solution. Next, please. So, Hume said, reason is and ought to be the slave of the passions. In other words, we should always go with emotion. Next, please. And those kinds of generalizations are less useful. Instead, we need to focus on understanding the underlying social, cognitive, neuroscience of each emotion. Here you see neutral versus sadness with the amygdala light up in some of the studies we're doing right now in financial decision making. Next. So we now plan to take these effects to scale. Next. And we are working with national retirement savings companies to help people make better decisions when they're planning their financial futures. We actually just reached an agreement today to do gratitude inductions. Next, please. Thanks to my colleagues. Next. Thanks to funding sources. And next, thank you to all of you.